Hello everybody, welcome to Glass Half Dead and welcome to Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team Nachmund, and specifically the Legionaries. These are the Chaos Space Marines, and first things first, I'd like to say, so that everybody is aware, Games Workshop did send me this box for free as a early review copy. However, they do not control my content, they do not demand any content from me, and they do not have any say. They don't get to see this video before I review it. With that said, let's take ourselves a little look at what we are getting here. As you know, I am all about the hobby on this channel, and so I want to show you these little models that I've painted. Aren't they cool? Now, I think we're going to see a lot of this, which is, you might notice that two of my models are proxies. They are not the official models that come in this box. That's because, you know, these are just kind of generic looking Marines, and you can do whatever you want with them. I thought the Possessed still looked a little bit silly, so I went with a Galvor Bok from Forge World. And I thought the Butcher was actually a totally fine model, but I had made this guy in the last edition of Kill Team as a Khorne Berserker, and I really wanted to use him. So this was a perfect excuse for me to use a model that I'd already done. Okay, and with that, we are now going to jump into the video. Don't worry, I'll be removing myself from the screen so we can just focus on the rules, but I want to let you all know that if you're a subscriber to my channel, I'd like to give you a big double hello. Wow, wasn't that a wholesome piratey sound? Well, if you want that in the next video, like, subscribe, leave a comment right now. Guys, let's jump into the content. First things first, we're going to look at the Tac Ops. Then we're going to jump on over to the list building. Then we're going to look at, that's right, psychic powers, abilities. We're going to look at the marks of Khorne. We're going to look at the strategic ploys, the tactical ploys, and then all of the data sheets. And then, yes, you know what it is. That's right, it's equipment. And finally, that's it. I am going to give you a little guide. So we're going to just read the whole book, and then hopefully at the end, we're going to change it from Man Reads Book to Man Understands Book. And I will tell you, I'll just give you a little guide about how you should play this. Understand that I have only played 2 games with this team, so this is more for first impressions. However, if you want first impressions from someone other than myself, I would recommend going and checking out my Patreon, where I sit down after a battle report with someone and they give their impressions, I give my impressions. It's about an hour-long talk, both for the Legionaries and for the Corsairs. And yes, that's right, battle reports for both of these teams coming out. 2 this week and potentially 2 next week as well. Let's dive into it, guys. It's Tac Ops for Legionary. Sacrilegious Mutation. Also, just to be clear, I'm going to read these pretty much verbatim and then tell you what it all means at the end. Reveal this Tac Op the first time an enemy operative is incapacitated. Each time an enemy operative is incapacitated before it is removed from the kill zone, place one of your enemy corpse tokens underneath the operative as close as possible to the center of its base. So do note, enemy corpse tokens. That sounds fun. I think we'll have a nice bit of hobby time there, won't we, everyone? The second time a friendly operative performs the Defiled for the Dark Gods action, you score 1 VP. The 4th time, you score another VP. So do note that for this to occur, you have to kill someone, then you have to do an action twice, and then to score the VP again, you have to do 4 actions. So get a kill and then perform 4 actions. Defiled for the Dark Gods. An operative can perform this action while within 1 inch of one of your enemy corpse tokens. An operative cannot perform this action while within 2 inches of an enemy operative. Move that enemy corpse token from the kill zone. I'm going to keep reading the Tac Ops, then we'll come back to this. Dark Desecration. Reveal this Tac Op in the target reveal step of the first turning point. Select one terrain feature that includes any parts with the heavy trait. If 2 or more enemy operatives are incapacitated while within 1 inch of that terrain feature, you score 1 VP. If you achieve the first condition and at the end of the battle, total APL of friendly operatives within 1 inch of that terrain feature is greater than that of enemy operatives, you score 1 VP. Savage Butcher. You can reveal this Tac Op at the target reveal step of any turning point. Select one friendly operative. If 2 or more enemy operatives are incapacitated in combat by that friendly operative, you score 1 VP. If 3 or more enemy operatives are incapacitated in combat by that friendly operative, you score 1 VP. Ooh, okay. This might sound a little scary. Don't worry. If you want just a general vibe check, these aren't great. Okay? None of these are going to win you a game compared to security or seek and destroy. Okay, let's just very quickly. So firstly, Dark Desecration. I used this in the upcoming battle report against Vet Guard. It's a great concept, and actually I would say that in certain matchups this is the one you want to go with. Essentially it counters seize ground and central control by making you do the same thing. There you go. So potentially an excellent counter pick to your opponent when you have a rough idea of what they're going to pick. Sacrilegious Mutation is super hard to do. So every time you kill a model, you put down a corpse token, and then once you action on it, you remove the corpse token. So you get the kill, and you do an action. That's just a lot to do. Like it's simple: get a kill, perform an action, but you have to do it 4 times to get 2 VP. That's a lot happening, and when it comes to this Marine team, you're only 6 models, and essentially, if you pick this, you are agreeing to only be 2 APL for half the game, almost. Savage Butcher is okay. It gets some kills. However, big issue is you select one friendly operative and the enemy will know which operative it is and then know you're going for it. So it's quite easy to counter. We'll ignore the Corsair Void Guard for the Corsair team video. Legionary kill team. 1 Legionary as either the chosen or the aspiring champion. 5 Legionaries as a warrior who can have a bolt gun or bolt pistol, chainsword. A gunner who can have the standard flamer, melter, plasma. Heavy gunner who can have heavy bolter, missile launcher, reaper, chain cannon. Icon bearer with bolt gun, bolt pistol. And then anointed, butcher, balefire, shrive talon. And of course, other than warrior operatives, which means this dude up here, your kill team can only include each operative above once. Which, for anyone that's completely new here and is just diving in because they're hyped for Chaos Space Marines, this does include this. So you can only have a gunner with 1 of these, and you can only have a heavy gunner with 1 of these. You couldn't, for example, take a Legionary gunner with flamer, and a Legionary gunner with melter, and a Legionary gunner with plasma. Can't do that. Marks of Chaos. When adding a Legionary operative to your roster or data slate, you must choose one of the keywords below to replace its selectable Mark of Chaos keyword with. Unlike other selectable keywords, Legion, you can have operatives with different Marks of Chaos keywords in your roster or data slate. Khorne, Nurgle, Slaanesh, Tzeentch, Undivided. If your roster contains any operatives with the Khorne keyword, it cannot contain any operatives with the Slaanesh keyword, and vice versa. If your roster contains any operatives with the Nurgle keyword, it cannot contain any operatives with the Tzeentch keyword, and vice versa. Oh, sorry, quick recap. No, I'll do it at the end. Oh, sorry, do note your security and seek and destroy. A lot of people like security. Seek and destroy makes a lot of sense for this team. So I have no issues with any of that. Now go to the abilities. And the psychic powers, and the strategic ploys. Oh boy, I hope that I have bookmarked this video for you. Guys, hit 1.5 or 2 times speed and let's get through this, okay? Put a model on your roster, you select one of these. Khorne, each time this operative fights in combat and resolves successful hit step of that combat, if you did not retain any critical hits, you can strike with 1 normal hit as if it were a critical hit. So, if you don't get any crits, you get a crit. Now, it will be interesting here because it says strike with 1 normal hit as if it were a critical hit, which means that you don't get the benefit of retaining the critical hit, which can sometimes trigger special abilities, I think. That's my first read of it. Nurgle. Each time a shooting attack is made against this operative in the roll defense dice step of that shooting attack, you can retain 1 normal save as a critical save. Slaanesh. Add 1 inch to this operative's movement characteristic. Do note that will affect a normal move and a charge, but not a dash. Tzeentch. Each time this operative makes a shooting attack in the roll attack dice step of that shooting attack, you can retain 1 of your attack dice results of 5+, that is a successful hit, as a critical hit. This gives 1 dice lethal 5+. Do note it's shooting attack only, not melee, because if it was, then it would probably be better than Khorne, almost, and you just always pick Tzeentch. Undivided. Each time this operative fights in combat or makes a shooting attack in the roll attack dice step of that combat or shooting attack, if the target is within 6 inches of it, you can reroll 1 of your attack dice. We're going to get into it, but Undivided isn't a bad thing to pick. Favoured of the Dark Gods. Once per turning point, when it is your turn to use a strategic ploy, if any friendly operatives with this ability are in the kill zone, you can use a strategic ploy without spending any CPs. That strategic ploy must have the same mark of chaos selectable keyword as one friendly operative with this ability. For example, if an operative with this ability has the Khorne keyword, you could use the Blood for the Blood God strategic ploy. That's this bad boy over here. If an operative with this ability has the Undivided keyword, you can use the following strategic ploys for this ability instead: Hateful Assault, Malicious Volleys. Now let's get, so very quickly, let's put that into a little bit of context for you. We're just going to jump forward, so we're looking for Favoured of the Dark Gods. Who has that? Who has Favoured of the Dark Gods? Oh look, the Icon Bearer can have Favoured of the Dark Gods. The Legionary Chosen, that's one of the leader models, has Favoured of the Dark Gods. And the Aspiring Champion has Favoured of the Dark Gods. This may be relevant later, just trying to contextualize it a little bit for you. Psychic Powers. Each time a friendly Psyker operative performs the Manifest Psychic Power action in each of its activations, select one Psychic Power from the list below to be resolved. There are 3. If a friendly Legionary Psychic operative can perform the Manifest Psychic Power action twice in its activation, e.g., it is equipped with the Pages of Scabrius, page 49. When it does so, roll 1d6. On a 1 to 2, that friendly operative suffers 3 mortal wounds. On a 3+, select one Psychic Power from the list below to be resolved. You cannot select a Psychic Power that you have already resolved during this turning point. Fire Blast. Perform a free shoot action using the following ranged weapon. Fire Blast. 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, 3-4. That is a standard bolter profile, in case you aren't aware. However, you get no cover, blast 2-inch, and splash 1. This is a really nice. I'm just going to throw it out there, everybody. No cover does not mean indirect. It does not mean they do not have cover. It just means they do not gain the benefit of cover for their defense roll. Blast is nice. This is a blast bolter with splash 1. Splash 1 I find is actually pretty cool. Malign Influence. Select one friendly Legionary operative visible to this operative. Until the end of the turning point, weapons that operative is equipped with gain a lethal 5+, no cover, and brutal special rules. So a quick note about this. This is a buff, obviously. And it says weapons that the operative is equipped with. So you could not Psychic Power, Malign Influence, the Psyker, and then Fire Blast or Life Siphon. Because you're not equipped with these weapons. It's just an attack. Life Siphon. Perform a free shoot action using the following ranged weapon. Life Siphon. Attacks 5, BS 3, D 3. And then Siphon Life Force. What does that do? Well, you've already read this, obviously, because I'm talking very slowly. Each time a friendly operative makes a shooting attack with this weapon, in the resolve successful hit step of that shooting attack, if you resolve 2 or more attack dice, you can select one friendly Legionary operative within 6 inches of the target and regain D3 lost wounds. Oh my gosh. Okay. We then go over to strategic ploys. Oh, sorry. Does anything need to be said about this? I'm going to leave the Chaos Blessing, the Marks of Khorne, until the end, when I go over a few ideas I can throw your way about how to build the team, some default picks. There is only one psychic model, so each turn you decide how you're going to divvy out these different abilities. These are cool abilities. All of these are good. There's no negative here. Strategic Ploys. Hateful Assault, 1 CP. Malicious Volleys, 1 CP. Everything's 1. I'm going to stop saying the CP cost. They're all 1 CP. These are straight out of the compendium. This is fight twice if you don't shoot, and this is shoot twice if you don't fight. That's all you need to know. Oh, with a bolt weapon. Sorry. That's all you need to know. Nice. So we're going to skip those because everybody knows them. So we go to Blood for the Blood God. Until the end of the turning point, each time a friendly Khorne operative fights in combat in the resolves... Oh, sorry. Allow me to take a step back. In here, there are 2 for Khorne, 2 for Nurgle, 2 for Slaanesh, 2 for Tzeentch. Okay? That's how this is formatted. That's how this is formatted. This all ties in with the marks that you give your guys. Okay? So, if you decide I want one of each of these, I want my Butcher to be Khorne, my Shrive Talon to be Nurgle, my Sorcerer to be Tzeentch, my Leader to be Undivided, great. But these then only affect one model, and that's where we have to start looking at the roster and how things are really going to work out. Do you want to be the big hitter Khorne? Do you want to be the defendable Nurgle? And then, are you going to go all in? Are you going to do 1 and 2? Are you going to do 2, 2, 2? And then how do these play into that? And most importantly, because your leader has Favored of the Dark Gods and can do one of these for free each turn, how are you building the team? Are you going all in? Are you divvying it up? Blood for the Blood God, the first Khorne ability. Until the end of the turn point, each time a friendly Khorne operative fights in combat, in the result of successful history of that combat, if it performed a charge action due to that activation, the first time it strikes, inflict 1 additional damage. Do 1 extra damage on the charge. Easy. I will note that in some interesting circumstances, for example, with deploy just a scratch, or any ability you have to ignore the damage on a dice, this is not on the dice, this is a damage. So it still would go through. The enemy would still take 1 damage. We then go to Perpetual Aggression, 1 CP. Stop saying the CP. They're all 1 CP, it's fine. Until the end of the turning point, each time a friendly Khorne operative fights in combat, if it is not within engagement range of an enemy operative, it can make a move following the same rules as normal move action, with the following exceptions. It can only move 3 inches. It can move within engagement range of enemy operatives. If it can, it must finish the move within engagement range of the closest visible enemy operative. For those familiar with old Kill Team, and for those familiar with 40k, this is a pile-in move, essentially. This is you charge, kill, pile in, or consolidate, whatever it's called. Potentially fight again if you have the APL, if you've used Hateful Assault, if you have a fight twice ability anyway. Now there's going to be a little bit of questions around how this actually functions when it comes to rules as written, but we're going to skip over that for now, because I'm sure that the community will have a good discussion, and we'll come back to it after that the community has decided. We then go to Mutagenic Flesh. This is the first one for Nurgle. Until the end of the turning point, each time normal damage will be inflicted upon a friendly Nurgle operative from an attack dice, subtract 1 for the damage inflicted from that attack dice to a minimum of 2. So there's some interesting things here, which is first, a minimum of 2 is very odd. Normally in these sorts of games, it's a minimum of 1. Yeah, so that's just interesting. And just having a subtract 1 for the damage inflicted from that attack dice is actually very nice. This is, statistically, very close to a 5-up Feel No Pain. It might even be better Implacable. Until the end of the turning point, friendly Nurgle operatives are not treated as being injured. Ignore all negative modifiers to their APL. Ignore the worsening of their ballistic skill when performing an Overwatch action. Graceful Killer. Until the end of the turning point, add 1 to the critical damage characteristic of friendly Slaanesh operatives' melee weapons. So that can, unlike the Blood for the Blood God, that can happen more than once. It's per critical hit. Until the end of the turning point, each time a friendly Slaanesh operative fights in combat in the resolve successful hit step of that combat, when you would resolve your first successful hit, if the target is injured, you can resolve 2 of your successful hits instead of 1. Now this is, in theory, super cool. How often is it actually going to come up? I don't know, because of course they have to be hurt first. But being able to hit twice before they hit is actually huge. This is going to allow you to kill most models. So they have to have taken 1 damage, and you then get to hit twice. This one-shots most models, but they have to have been hit first. So difficult to pull off, cool when it works. Protected by Fate. Until the end of the turning point, each time a shooting attack is made against a friendly Tzeentch operative in the roll defense dice step of that shooting attack, if you retain any critical save, you can select one of your failed saves to be retained as a successful normal save. Aetheric Ward. Until the end of the turning point, friendly Tzeentch operatives have a 4-up invuln save. This is a cool thing in certain matchups, but only when the enemy has a large amount of AP2. So, for example, blaster weapons, melters, etc. But otherwise, you're normally better going off with your 3-up save. Tactical Ploys, Veteran of the Long War. Again, these are all 1 CP, so I'm not going to announce the CP they cost. This is exactly the same as in the compendium, which is if you fail to do any damage, go again. Which is actually remarkably useful sometimes. Unending Bloodshed. Use this tactical ploy when a ready friendly Khorne operative is incapacitated in combat by an enemy operative. Before that friendly operative is removed from the kill zone, select 1 melee weapon it is equipped with and roll 1 attack dice as if it is the attacker fighting in combat. If the result is a successful hit, you can immediately strike an enemy operative within engagement range of it, then remove that friendly operative from the kill zone as normal. That is a long paragraph to mean make 1 attack before you die. There you go. That's all that means. Don't read more into it. You roll 1 dice as if you were fighting a normal attack. Take whatever your weapon is and pretend that it's A1. That's what that means. Mutability and change. Use this tactical deploy during a friendly Zinch operative's activation. Add 1 to that operative's APL. I think we can all agree that having a 4th APL can be clutch, especially if you're throwing out hateful assault and malicious volleys on a regular basis. Malignant Aura. Use this tactical deploy during a friendly Nurgle operative's activation. Until the end of the turning point, while an enemy operative is within 3 inches of that Nurgle operative, subtract 1 for the defense characteristic of that enemy operative. Do note that, you're thinking, oh wow, they're -1 to their defense, that's great, and I have to be within 3 inches, that's fine, I want to be in melee anyway. But of course, defense has nothing to do with melee combat. It will come up, but not as often as you may think. Sickening Captivation. Use this tactical deploy during a friendly Slaanesh operative's activation. Select 1 enemy operative visible to and within 3 inches of that Slaanesh operative, subtract 1 for that enemy operative's APL. This one I prefer. You can always have -1 APL. I mean, you're not going to use it all the time, but yeah, it's good. Legionary Warrior. This is exactly what you would expect. In fact, it is exactly the same as the Compendium, as is the Legionary Gunner. And, I'm just going to throw it out there, you're always taking the plasma gun. If you only have access to buy one, or to build one model as a gunner, you're taking the plasma gunner. There's no questions about it, guys. This is the go-to. Are you ever taking the flamer? Probably not. Sometimes you will take the melter. Heavy gunner. An interesting one. If I'm honest, I feel there isn't room for the heavy gunner in this game, in this list. Certainly I haven't built one, and if I haven't built one, there's probably a reason I didn't. If you are going to take one, personally, I actually still like the missile launcher. Hey, the Reaper chain cannon obviously looks best. Then we get to the Anointed. He has a standard bolt pistol, and then he has a Demonic Claw, which is 5 attacks, hitting on 3s, 4/5, rending. That is a Gene Stealer's attack line, and now a Flayed One's attack line, just for reference. Once per battle, when this operative is activated, the demon can take control. If it does so, until the end of the battle. This operative cannot perform Overwatch, Pick Up, Shoot, or Mission actions. Each time this operative would lose a wound, roll 1d6 on a 5-up that wound is not lost. 5-up feel no pain. Its Demonic Claw gains the Ceaseless and Lethal 5+ special rule. Each time this operative is activated, it can perform 2 fight actions during their activation. Very cool. I would say, from my very brief look, you can just pop this straight away, turn 1. Very rarely will people not use this turn 1, I genuinely think. Because at the very least, it gives you a 5-up feel no pain. Rarely are we having to pick up anything, and you just have a bolt pistol, you don't care too much about shoot and Overwatch. You can still hold a point. Note that as well. It's just stopping you from doing a few things, not everything. You're always taking all of these named characters, by the way. You're always taking Anointed, Butcher, Shrive Talon, Balefire, Acolyte, and 1 leader. The only question is, what do you take as the 5th model? And guys, it's always going to be a plasma gun. We then go to the Legionary Butcher. Now, we've already seen this guy a little bit on Warcom. Double-handed chain axe, 4 attacks, hitting on 4s, 5/7. Vicious blows, reap 2. Devastating onslaught. Each time this operative fights in combat, enemy operatives within engagement range of it cannot provide combat support for that combat. So that means no weapon skill bonuses for the enemy. For the purposes of dash, fallback, and normal move actions, enemy operatives will perform. Treat the distance of this operative's engagement range as 2 inches for that action instead of 1 inch. This just means that if he's very hard to get around. If someone is attempting to move around him, he's a much bigger block on the board. Vicious blows. Each time this operative fights in combat, if this operative is the attacker, this weapon gains the Ceaseless special rule for that combat. If this operative performed a charge action during this activation, this weapon gains the Relentless special rule for this combat. Do note that this does not mean you are always rerolling 1s. This means that if you've charged in the previous turn, and then you are now performing the fight action, but haven't charged, yeah, if you're the one performing the fight action, you are the attacker, so you get Ceaseless. Legionary Shrive Talon. This guy is just a wall of text, isn't he? Right, bolt pistol. Flensing Blades. 5 attacks, hitting on 3s, 3/5, lethal 5+. Vicious Reflexes. Each time this operative fights in combat in the resolved successful hit step of that combat, If you are the defender, then you start instead of the attacker when resolving successful hits. Horrifying dismemberment. Each time this operative fights in combat, if it incapacitates an enemy operative, select one enemy operative within 3 inches of it. Subtract 1 from that enemy operative's APL. You know, the more ways to mess with APL, the better, right? Grizzly Mark, 2 AP. Place a Grizzly Mark token within 1 inch of this operative. This operative can only perform this action once, and it cannot perform this action if it is within engagement range of an enemy operative. Each time an enemy operative will perform a mission action or the pickup action, if that enemy operative is within 3 inches of your Grizzly Mark token, 1 additional action point must be subtracted to perform that action. When determining control of an objective marker that Grizzly Mark token is within 3 inches of, treat enemy operative's total APL as being 1 less. Note this is not a modifier. We then come to the Icon Bearer. When determining control of an objective marker, treat this operative's APL characteristic as being 1 higher. Note that this is not a modifier. And then a narrative plate thing. So the Icon Bearer is fine. You're not going to take him though, which is a bit of a shame in some ways. But yeah. Legionary Balefire Acolyte. So you get a Fell Dagger, which is 5 attacks, hitting on 3s, 3, 4, demonic energies. Oh, I wonder what that is. Hatred of Sorcery. This operative's Mark of Chaos keyword cannot be replaced with Khorne. That makes sense. He's a sorcerer. Cool. Demonic energies. Each time this operative fights in combat, in the roll attack dice step of that combat, each time you retain a critical hit, the target suffers 2 mortal wounds. So that's 2 mortal wounds per critical hit. Oof. And you can also do a psychic power. Do note, there is no way just inherently for this model to perform 2 psychic powers. We then come to the Legionary Chosen. Plasma Pistol hitting on 3s. Bolt Pistol hitting on 3s. Demon Blade hitting on 2s. Demon Blade is 5 attacks, hitting on 2s, 4, 7, lethal 5+. Now, remember in the Warcom article where they said the Butcher is the big guy? With his 4 attacks hitting on 4s, 5, 7? Baby, we're hitting on 2s. I'll take this guy every day. Every day. This guy is way more consistent than the Butcher. I'll take the 4-7, lethal 5 up any day. Demonic Aura. Each time an enemy operative starts a fallback action while within engagement range of this operative, reduce the distance that enemy operative can move by 4 inches to a minimum of 2 inches. This is obviously quite niche, but also cool. It means that if they're falling back, that is all they are doing. Chances are they're not falling back to make a sneaky move onto an objective. It's just, yep, I'm no longer in melee with you. Soul Feast. Each time this operative fights in combat in the resolve successful hit step of that combat, if any of their strikes inflict critical damage, this operative regains 2 lost wounds. The Balefire Acolyte over here doing 2 mortal wounds on a crit. My boy over here regaining 2 lost wounds. Is that per crit if any of their strikes inflict critical damage? No. No. This is 1. Because if any of their strikes inflict critical damage. So the max you can regain is 2. But over here you're unrestricted. You can deal as many mortal wounds as you want. You can only regain 2 here. Very cool. And again, Favored of the Dark Gods, so he's proccing a free thing every turn. Legionary Aspiring Champion. Don't worry guys, we're powering through, we're almost there. Power Fist. Everything here is what you'd expect. Sorry, there's not really anything to shout home about. Do note, Plasma Pistol here is 2 up, as opposed to 3 up with the Chosen. And you have Tainted Chainsword, which is 5 attacks, hitting on 2s, 4, 5. Parry Hook. Parry Hook. Each time a friendly operative fights in combat with this weapon, in the resolve successful hit step of that combat, each time you parry with a normal hit, you can select one of your opponent's critical hits to be discarded instead. That's actually pretty good, as it is very often critical hits that decide melee. So that is good. I want to be clear on that. And your 5 attacks hitting on 2s, I mean, you know, you can essentially parry all of their, if they get really lucky on crits, you can stop them. And they get in the Eyes of the Dark Gods. Once per turn point, when this operative incapacitates an enemy operative, you can add 1 to this operative APL. Because the way it's worded, if you charge and kill someone, yes, you get the extra APL. But because it's not at the start of your activation, the APL does not get added to your pool that you can spend. And because of the way APL works, at the end of the activation, which will happen imminently because you've just charged and fought, you lose the APL. So I hope this will get some sort of FAQ to say that it can be added to the pool, but this seems like a design choice they've gone with, that this is something they want people to be able to do. but the way APL rules are worded, it will never work. So every time they put this in, they will need a specific thing saying, oh, by the way, this does work as you think it should, which is a little bit frustrating. Aggression stimulants for 3 EP. Each time this operative fights in combat, and roll attack dice step of that combat. If this operative performed a charge action during this turning point, you can reroll one of your attack dice. So if you charge, you gain balanced. The 3 EP. This could be good on certain models, but at the same time, kind of not. So you might think, who needs to reroll a dice? Well, okay. The Butcher, because he's hitting on 4s, right? Well, yeah, but you have to charge, and if you've charged, you have Relentless. So you're never using it. Okay, who else needs to? Well, maybe one of, maybe well, they've all got 5 attacks. You don't really need balanced when you've got 5 attacks. Frag Grenade, Crack Grenade, we know what those are. Warded Armor. Change this operative save characteristic to 2+ for the battle. In the resolved successful hit step of a combat or shooting attack, if an attack dice inflicts damage on this operative, its save characteristic is changed back to its normal characteristic for the rest of the battle. The only thing I would say about this is that if the enemy inflicts mortal wounds on you, because that's their retain, has nothing to do with yours armor save, you don't lose this from mortal wounds, I believe. I'd have to double check that, but just first impression, immediate reading, I think that's what it means. For 3 EP, that's tough. You're only getting a 2-up armor instead of a 3-up. Is it worth it? Hard to say. And you are going to take damage. Suspensor system. The standard removes heavy, but you're not taking a heavy gunner, so it's irrelevant. Malign Scripture. 2 EP, Legionary Balefire Acolyte Operative only. The operative gains the following ability for the battle. Malign Scripture. Once per battle, this operative can perform 2 manifest psychic power actions during its activation. So this is a bit of an interesting one. So it's costing you 2 EP. It's allowing you to cast, so one time in the battle only, you can cast 2 psychic powers. But you are still subject to, on the roll of a 1 or a 2, you take 3 mortal wounds. So costs you EP and it's not guaranteed. I don't know. Tainted Round selects 1 bolt gun, bolt pistol, or tainted bolt pistol. This operative is equipped to add 1 to both damage characteristics of that weapon. So this had interest to me. For example, tainted bolt pistol, I could increase that to a 4/5. That's pretty good. But he's gonna take a plasma pistol, and it's not as good as a plasma pistol. So, moving on. Grizzly Trophy. While this operative is visible to and within 3 inches of an enemy operative, subtract 1 from the attack's characteristic of ranged and melee weapons that enemy operative is equipped with. This is pretty nice. I quite like this. So this is something that I feel you could put on any of your melee dudes. So the Chosen, the Butcher, the Shrive Talon, the Anointed. And actually, everyone around them is just -1 attack. Whether they're going for that guy in melee or they're trying to shoot out. Yeah, so I actually quite like that. And then we have Malefic Blade. Now Malefic Blade is the best melee equipment in the game. Yeah, it's just really good. For 2 EP, attack 5, weapon skill 3, damage 3/5. That is the best melee equipment in the game so far. Which I suppose makes sense for this team. Who are you putting it on though? Well, none of the named dudes. So the only one you're taking that might actually get use from this is your Plasma Gunner. So we're not taking that. Okay. Alright. Woo. We are done. Wow. Okay. So I suppose I want to quickly throw out there a few things. So in this, I have said, I've made a few statements, a few bold claims. And I just want to kind of talk about them. Let's do that. Let's zoom in. Here we go. Here's all our lovely guys. So I don't know. I think what I've put together here is the default loadout. I actually can't see anybody making a good claim to not run this loadout. We have the Chosen. He's the only one. I'm okay with if somebody says, no, I prefer the Aspiring Champion, fair enough. Fair enough. But one of the 2 leaders, both have their pros and cons. I like this guy because he can heal himself for 2 wounds in a melee, and I think you're going to need that. The Anointed, who I'm using as a Galvor Bok, why would you not take him? Right? He gets fight twice. Butcher, you know, Okay, I could see somebody not wanting the butcher because he's hitting on 4s. I can see it. If so, you'd probably end up taking a heavy gunner, I suppose, and then swap to a slightly more ranged play. But you can't play ranged. I don't know. But he's the most questionable just for the unreliability. Yes, you have ceaseless. Yes, you have relentless. But let me tell you, in one of the battle reports, he fluffed it and died turn 1 or turn 2. So yeah, Balefire Acolyte. You're always taking that guy. Not even a question. Cool. Plasma Gunner. Again, you might swap him to a different weapon. You might take a Melter. I can see use for a Melter. Taking a Melter and the equipment. So he's got whatever it was, the Wretched Blade. I can see that. And the Shrive Talon. He's just a solid melee guy. I don't know why you wouldn't take him again. Oh, also shout out to the Balefire Acolyte, who is also good in melee. He's kind of your best guy. Great in melee, great ranged, and can buff. Really strong. And that's it. And how are you going to run them? So I think... Okay, so actually I think that this is where everyone should just play what you want to play. Okay, I think these guys are good stuff. I don't think you need to listen to me here, but if you're a little bit concerned, there's too many options, you don't know what to do. These two, our Balefire Acolyte and our ranged gunner, are going to be Zinch. These 4 are going to be Khorne. There you go. And I think that is kind of your standard. That right there. 4 Khorne, 2 Zinch. Nice. But I think that there's play with all of this. So although I think this is a nice basic starter loadout, and it may in fact become the most efficient best loadout as well, I think there's other ways to run it. If depending on terrain, you might find that, you know what, I'm not able to get out there fast enough. I need to be Slanesh. I need everyone to have +1 inch to their move. One of the big deals we're going to find with this team is there's only 6 models. So you might want to run everyone as Nurgle for that -1, and every time you're going to use your chosen, or your leader, sorry, to do the -1 damage, so that you can just tank more hits and run up the board. Other possibility is what you do with this guy, the leader. Now it's possible. What are you doing here, right? Are you running him as... I want him to be whichever mark for everybody else is the most numerous, so that I'm getting the most benefit? Or are you running him as undivided? That's an interesting one. So I think it's going to depend a little bit on matchup, because don't forget his weapon is 7 on the crit. What does that mean? It means if you're fighting against, let's say, Vet Guard, you might want the ability for this to be... if you're fighting against Corsairs who are 8, or Harlequins, or any Eldar that are 8, you might want this to have the Khorne ability so that he's one-shotting still. That's very possible. But as this is 7 anyway, you might not need it. In which case, you might prefer him to be undivided. And I think that's the other possibility. He's either whichever one of these is the most numerous, so that you're getting the most benefit out of all of your CP, or your free CP, whatever it is, or you go undivided, because then you can pick fight twice or shoot twice, which is probably always going to be useful. Especially with this team, you're primarily melee. Everyone, especially if you decide to give your gunner the pow shooty stabby malefic blade, whatever it was, everyone can benefit from hateful assault. Very possible. And it's also possible everyone can benefit from malicious volleys, because everybody is equipped with a bolt pistol, and that's it. That is the, what are they called? The Legionary, the Chaos Space Marine Legionary kill team. I think the other thing I can say, if you want a tactical advice about them, is it's very clear. I don't think I'm shocking anybody here. They're a melee team, guys. You need to run in and deal damage, and that's all this team does. Yes, you have a plasma. Plasma can be good. It's great at ranged. This guy, also pretty good at ranged. Everybody else, nothing. Nothing at all, nothing. You have 2 models that can do range damage. Except this guy's also really good in melee. And this guy, with 1 piece of equipment, is also really good in melee, which might actually be a very good shout and reason to make not the plasma the standard, but standard loadout could easily become melter with malefic blade equipment always, as then he's running up with the rest of your guys to deal damage in melee, because that's where they all need to be. And then that's it. I think that's it. Yeah. Oh, however, sorry, you're still going to take grenades. You can stick grenades on everyone. If you're up against tougher guys, take cracks. If you're up against smaller guys, take cracks. There you go. Okay, everybody. This has been Glass Half Dead. Oh wait, I can bring myself back onto. Okay, everybody, this has been Glass Half Dead. Thank you very much for watching. If you've made it to the end of the video, I would of course like to give you a big triple hello. Wow, so wholesome, in a very heretical way. Wholesomely heretical. That's what they always say about me in this channel. If you like a wholesomely heretical pleasantry in the next video, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and thank you for watching to the end, because that really does help a small channel like mine. If you've been here for the hour that it's taken me to get through this, then hey, go and check out the terrain unboxing I've done and the Corsair breakdown I've done, which is basically this but for the Corsairs. There's also in this week upcoming 2 battle reports, and if you like what I'm doing here and want to encourage me and show me a little bit of support, check out my Patreon, where people show me their support financially, I guess, because that really helps keep the channel alive. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, I hope you've had a good day and continue to have a good day. Goodbye.